Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second podcast. We've got better. We've got Zoom up and running, no issues.
And two microphones.
And two microphones. So I hope the sound quality will be infinitely better, guys. Thanks to Rob, who enlightened me about our, well, let's put it this way, our sound quality not being the very best. So hopefully this time round you can hear us exactly clear and what we've got to say. So let's have a really good chat about what it was like in terms of when you were out. I don't know about you, mate. I've been looking forward to this one, especially in light of everything that's going on right now with new variants running everywhere, it seems like. So on this particular podcast, everybody, so I hope we'll give you some pearls of light-hearted entertainment and reminisce, and you guys can have a chuckle and hopefully enjoy what we've got to say. So I would like to kick off and have a good old chat about our first memories. And I don't know about you, but my memory, first of all, in terms of the nightclub barring scene, was that we went to our first club and bar up in central London around the sixth form period, where we had a curfew of, 12 noon? 12 noon, 12 at midnight. Does that recollect with you, mate, in terms of your memory?
Well, Johnny, I'm going to have to just bring you back a bit. 15 we were, 15.
Right.
Certainly. This message is going out to everyone out there listening. We didn't have a curfew when we were in sixth form. Johnny, you were about 17, 18. So by then we were fully embedded in the bar stroke club scene.
Mm-hmm.
It was 15 years old. And if I can remember correctly, it was your birthday.
It was. And we went to Hampstead, did we not? And I think between the four of us, I don't know if I was the instigator, the whole idea was, shall we move out of Hampstead and go up west?
That's absolutely right. I think it was one of our friends that said, guys, let's go to a club. And we went, come on, we'll never get in. And he said, well, I've been to clubs. Look, you look all right. You had your dad's suit on. I raided my father's wardrobe, although I can't really say I looked as good in a black velvet jacket. But
1970s Eat Your Heart Out, I remember, with your cartoons hairstyle.
Yes. More Saturday Night Fever, I think. But, at the end of the day, we looked the part. Well, I think I looked the part. Maybe we didn't. Maybe they all had a good old laugh at us. But nevertheless, we did it. We were brave.
It was Laces, wasn't it? The first one.
It was Laces. We went into central London. We queued up.
How did that come about? Was that wasn't it a tout that basically came up to us? I think it was. We were in a group of four, and he said, "Yeah." We said to him, where's a really good club where there's lots of girls, because obviously we were young hormonal teenagers. And he said, yeah, I've got this fantastic club for you. It's awesome. And he said loads of girls there and everything else. Yeah, absolutely. And he got us to pay like 10 quid, which back then was a lot of money for a club. We're talking 25 years or so ago. And from my memory, we went downstairs and it was just us, another three guys, and I think only two ladies. And I think we were done. It was like four young guys, totally naive, and we had looked at each other and said, oh, what have we done? And we only had 2 hours on the clock before the last train, if you remember.
Yes. Well, to be honest, Johnny, we were just happy to get into any club at that age. And when the ticket tout spoke to us, he spoke to the doorman, they looked at us. I'm sure they knew we weren't like a day over 12 at the time, in terms of our appearance. But you know what? They let us in, and we realised very quickly that people started to come in a little bit later on. It was just a little bit of a shame, wasn't it? That, as the club started filling up, we started to enjoy ourselves, dancing, enjoying the music. But we knew that most people were coming in between 10 and 11, and we were all looking at our clocks at 11 o'clock going, we better get home.
Yeah. Because I think naively we thought that, we could go into the club around about 8:30, and then have fun, meet someone, hunky dory, back home on the last train. Little did we know that, in fact, the clubbing scene only got started until we left. But it was the first experience. It was the first experience of, us going to a nightclub and bar all together. And that was something I never forget in terms of laces. Another one that comes to mind in terms of firsts and memories, I think, was the old Hippodrome in Leicester Square. Because I think we started off with the big commercial clubs, didn't we? Because we were young, we were impressionable, we were just discovering West End. It felt like this big, big place for four young lads from a North London suburb going up west. And Hippodrome was one of them, I remember, to my memory, with us all four going on the dance floor and having a bit of a laugh in terms of commercial clubs. What about you, mate, in terms of memories and other clubs that we went to as a first?
Yeah, obviously the Equinox and the Hippodromes, etc., were big clubs out there with great dance floors, and it was, good atmosphere, good ambience, and we really enjoyed ourselves. We managed to, agree that we could stay out a little bit longer, and that obviously helped, because in those bigger clubs people came in later, and it was just a natural development. But we had Camden Town with Camden Palais, we had Bar Royale, which was a fantastic club. We were going to Hammersmith Palais. We had a couple of holidays in Ibiza. Had Hacienda in Manchester, and Cream in Liverpool. I'm sure many viewers out there will remember those great dance clubs. So we had the non-commercial dance scene, and the King's Cross, and the Victoria scene, which now, if I look, it's all shops and restaurants and housing now. But certainly, going back to that very beginning, the Equinox and the Hippodromes had their laser light shows. And, I've seen some YouTube video clips showing people dancing and enjoying
Mm.
themselves at New Year's Eve parties. And that's what I remember, was just great atmosphere and fun. But certainly Camden Town was a great place, and we had some brilliant times in Bar Royale.
Yeah, it's a good point, mate, in terms of some of those clubs, and you just talking about them invokes so many memories. Just right now, just flashing through my mind. I think when we break this down, the clubs that we first went to in our kind of teenage years were your big kind of clubs. For us, was the be all and end all. I remember tunes like Night Crawlers, and they were talking, having those kind of tunes in school, and almost doing things like cassette recordings of what we heard in the nightclub. And
Prodigy,
yeah,
all of them,
Prodigy. And for me, all of that was so exciting, because I think it was the transformation from being a boy into a young man. And I hear you when you talk about your velvet, suit and your cartoon hairstyle, and me with my dad's jacket and stuff like that, because it was all about looking older. It was about being cool, into this new grown-up vibe of the clubs and bars, this magical world where we are, where it's very sleepy, to the West End and everything they had. And us four guys, we went to all these kind of clubs at the beginning that you mentioned. And I, for one, have such strong memories of the rush, the adrenaline, and for me, of getting in the club. But the biggest thing for me, as a hormonal teenager, kind of young adolescent guy, it was all about meeting the right girl. It really was for me. You were more into the music scene. I appreciated it, but as a young kind of guy, lad, it was all about the opportunity to go out there to this nightclub or clubs, and meet, meet women, meet girls, and have a dance, and just finding this whole new world, and that adrenaline and that rush and that memory, as you grow older, you know, it doesn't leave you. It doesn't leave you.
Absolutely, Johnny. I mean, look, I remember you and I, you know, we've been going out to bars and clubs, not just here in the UK, but, you know, all around the world for, you know, best part of 30 odd years now. And exactly what you said. I remember us talking about, you know, how do you talk to a girl? How do you, you know, what do you say? And,
Mm.
you know, there was a big learning curve
Having
in
your
our life.
drink, position yourself on someone, a girl you like, making eye contact, all of that. I remember it like as if it was yesterday.
But everyone had fun. Everyone
Yeah,
enjoyed
yeah.
themselves. You know, people talked, people communicated, people danced, people had fun. And we enjoyed ourselves, and we met girls and girls met us, and uh, we would sometimes meet up with people that we got to know, and we would meet them in there, and it was great fun. But just to bring you back, I think, you know, a lot happened on the way up there and also on the way back, because it was the whole ritual of getting ready. It was, you know, making sure that you had your best clothes on,
Best
you had
aftershave.
your best aftershave, you brushed your hair, had your hair cut. Um,
I remember my aftershave back then was Fahrenheit 9/11. It was the
yeah,
Vogue back then.
yeah,
Maybe too much of it. I was splashed everywhere, from cheek to cheek, from cheek to cheek.
yeah. And it was about getting on that tube, and it was about talking about what we're going to do, what we're going to say, practicing our date of birth should we get asked for ID. And
Mm.
it was really quite intense. You know, we were um, you know, probably quite nervous. We were, you know, in our kind of zone.
Yeah.
We were just, you know, trying to take in the atmosphere. Standing in that queue, approaching those doormen seemed a lifetime.
Mm.
We would all be very, very serious, and we put on our best face. And, you know, even before that point, going back before that point, I remember when we went to those first clubs like Equinox and Hippodrome and Laces, etc. We would walk up, we would walk back, we would walk up, we would walk back. It'd be you go first,
Building
I
the
go
courage.
second. There was, you know, we probably spent half an hour discussing how we were going to basically present ourselves in the queue just to get in. And then once
Mm.
you got into the club, it was like, wow, okay, I'm in.
Mm. I've
A
arrived.
big, a big weight off my shoulders. Now let's just enjoy ourselves. So it was, you know, and I'm sure there's many people listening to this going, I remember those days. I remember the queuing up and, you know, looking at, you know, talking to the doorman, and that was a big part of it.
And
Now
and he
you just walk
was.
up and you walk in.
Yeah, and he was. And if it wasn't the train journey, we'd go by car. And I remember with you getting your mum's car, not quite telling your mum and dad where you were off to, because we didn't back then. We just make it, oh, we're just going out locally. We're not taking mum and dad's car and going all the way up west. And I remember, you know, the petrol money, you know, with all of us all kind of getting our pennies and right, you know, petrol money to go up west. And getting our coppers and everything else. And I think the entrance fee was something like, I don't know, £5 back then. It's something like that. It was ridiculous. And I don't know about you, but you could come home and have a good night out and a few drinks, and it would only be about 20, 25 quid. But it was different scenes. We'd either go by the train or we'd go by the car. But as we transitioned, I would say that those early clubs, those early memories were very much when we were like you said, from about 15 to what, your early 20s, your early 20s. What would you say were your favorite clubs and bars of the noughties and the 2000s? As you got older, you know, we've done the kind of early memories, as it were, in terms of discovery and going out there and the whole process and looking older and trying to get in to these places and these big clubs that we associated up west. What would you say as you grew older in your early 20s to mid 20s were your kind of favorite clubs and bars thinking about it?
Yeah, I suppose it all depends who you were with. When you and I, we would go to many different sort of bars and clubs. Really enjoyed, China White, all sorts of places like that with you. Many of those places don't exist anymore. And then, on the more dance scene side of it, you had your Fabrics, you had your Pashas up at Victoria, and Heaven and Ministry Sound and Bagley's and stuff at King's Cross. They were fantastic venues for, just listening to some of the best DJs around the world. You had your late Tony DeFee there, and your Jeremy Healy's, and your uh, uh, Tall Paul and Just Jules, etc., etc. But sometimes we went to places that just surprised us. For instance, if you wanted to just go out for a local drink, have something to eat, and then have a really good dance, we found that there were places just west of North London, like Nolitas, where many different
Mm.
people frequented quite a bit, and they were just fantastic places to go because you could eat, you could ease into your night, you had a drink, you got to know the owner and the people there, and other people that went, and then all of a sudden it just opened up into that dance floor. And there was a real nostalgic feel about places like that. And it just took me back 10, 15 years. But they were just good fun. And of course, most people in that place were probably over the age of 25, 30 as well. But, I think we've probably been to mostly every single place, or tried every single place,
Yeah.
from your more serious clubs to your more commercial clubs. And, there's other places as well that I could talk of, places that you and I, when we were in America, when we went to, Cannes and Monte Carlo. Some of these places were fantastic. They were like sizes of 3 or 4 tennis courts. They had space, they had dancing, they had eating, they had everything. And it was, yeah. And things have changed since then. Obviously, bars and clubs have changed. There's certainly more casinos about. But, those were some of my fondest memories.
No, I totally hear you, mate. Relaying that question back to me, in terms of my favourite clubs and bars, and some of them will overlap. You got a bit of the cough there, Rob. Hopefully, nothing of the sinister sort for everybody out there. Don't worry.
No, just swallowed the single malt the wrong way.
Yeah. Some of my favourite clubs and bars, I would say, in the noughties and early 2000s, and I'm going to break it up in terms of kind of almost like categories. For me, one of the main kind of clubs that come to mind in my early 20s, and I think as this discussion progresses, we'll touch upon about what you said, in terms of international scene and some of the places that we've gone to and how things have changed. But I would say, first of all, it would be Vogue. And the reason I would say Vogue is Vogue, for anyone out there listening, was a kind of a small to medium sized club at the top end of Wardour Street in London. And why Vogue made an impression on me was it was one of the first places that we were going to as mates on a quite a regular basis. And for you guys out there to picture this place, it was a club where you had kind of, as you go down the stairs, all glass in front of you. Not that we were consumed by the glass until you're looking at the glass, because we weren't vain. Well, maybe we were a little. And you had like a little dance place, and I remember some classic tunes there, and one song that stayed with me, and forever whenever I go down Wardour Street and I look to that particular section at the corner, which has changed now. I think it's called Dirty Harry's or something else. It's changed so many times. Was listening to a song whereby it was Everything But the Girl, Everything But the Girl. And every time I go past that place, that song and that kind of connection with Vogue comes straight to my head. And they say that you know, smell and music invokes the strongest memories. So, and it certainly did with me. So Vogue was one in terms of like a club place that we would go on a regular basis. In terms of other clubs that comes to mind throughout my 20s and stuff, China White, definitely. I agree with you with that. It was one of the coolest places to go to on a Wednesday and Thursday night. For you guys out there, this club was the be-all and end-all place in the early 2000s. It was a club whereby who's who would be going to it on a regular basis around your Wednesday night, Thursday night. 2 big rooms, fantastic music, really, really good atmosphere, everybody letting their hair down. And no matter people knocking it at times, saying, oh, China White, China White, every time you would go on a night out, you would end up in China White. Another kind of place that comes to mind in terms of bars would be, for me, would be Sanderson's. And Sanderson's is still there for everyone out there. So not everything we say is dated, guys. You know, they haven't all changed. Some of them have stood the test of time, and Sanderson's one of them. It's a Philip Stark building, nothing to look at. But back then, in the early 2000s, it was a fantastic place. It was what's called a long bar. It was such an engaging environment. You had a little garden section, great music. So for bars, for me, was Sanderson's. And I totally agree with you in terms of outside of London, Nolita's. And I think I won't go in too much detail on Nolita's because it's going to touch on another area that we're going to talk about in this podcast, how things changed and how our taste changed as we went into our 30s. But yeah, those clubs definitely come to mind, mate.
I mean, certainly, Johnny, I was always with you when you went into Sanderson's, and I liked Sanderson's a lot. I thought it was a fantastic place with the garden area. And, you know, you're now jogging my memory, because I could say the same thing about we had good times when we went to the Richard Branson's club in Kensington.
Kensington Roof Gardens. Yeah, that's it.
That
Yeah.
was fantastic. You had
Still
the
there,
flamingos.
guys. Another one that's still there. We're still hanging in tough. It's still
Yeah,
there.
yeah. You know, you had the flamingos and the
Yeah.
great rooftop gardens, ducks and indoor area. It's brilliant. And for those of you that know, you know, clubs from around the world, Sanderson's had a sister club in New York called Hudson's.
That's right.
And Johnny, you and I stayed at Hudson's
Yeah.
Hotel.
Amazing place.
And that was brilliant, because Hudson's Hotel was exactly the same as
It was better.
uh,
It was better than
yeah,
Sanderson's.
even better than Sanderson's, but it was the same kind of feeling.
Mm.
You had the rooftop garden,
Yeah.
you had you know, a great club, you had multicolored floor, and you know, I remember coming up the escalators and it was all green lights, and you know, we were speaking to people in New York, excuse me, and people said, you know, guys, this is the place to go. As it was to the bed bath that was in, you know, Sex and the City. So we will probably do another podcast where we'll talk about other clubs and other bars.
International ones. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And any listeners out there for, you know, live in New York or live in Cannes or live in Monte Carlo, wherever you might be, if you want to join the discussion and tell us about what you've seen and how things have changed in those cities, because I remember what those clubs and bars are like, but only at a point in time that I went. Whereas, of course, you would have seen the same evolution of change as we have in our own city, London.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. London has gone through a massive evolution. When we first started going out, it was, you know, London's always been an amazing city, let's face it. And, you know, a lot of people argue capital of the world, you know, but back when we went, it wasn't like how it is now, where it's very gentrified, fantastic cafes and bars and everything else like that. It was, you know, very kind of edgy in some aspects, in certain areas and certain scenes or places. And it's changed a massive amount. before our own very eyes, and you change with it. And if you don't, to be honest with you, it's not for you. And that leads me nicely on to, what would you say are the biggest differences to then, in our 20s or early teens to 20s, and we're going to touch upon the 30s a bit later, but and now, the bars and the club scene. What would you say, mate?
What the biggest changes?
Yeah, what would you say is has been the biggest kind of changes that you've seen in terms of, when we go out to how it
Yeah,
used to be?
sure. I think the two biggest changes. One, I said to a friend earlier that we're going to do a podcast about the bars and clubs and what's changed, and they made a jokey comment. Well, I'll tell you what's changed. They're all closed. And
Yeah.
I had to laugh at that. And we're not referring to the fact that they're all closed because of the pandemic. That's another story. But what they mean by that is that anyone that knows London will know that in place of Bagley's, in place of Pasha and Victoria, in place of a lot of these clubs, they're gone. They've been knocked down.
Mm,
They're now, nice piazzas, real estate, restaurants, and casinos. Many bars and clubs now are kind of this split bar stroke casino with a dance floor as almost like a secondary option. It's a bit like
mm,
having a mobile phone.
mm.
When you first had that mobile phone back in the 90s, it was a phone.
Your
That's what it did.
Nokias, your Nokias. I
Yeah,
remember that.
that's what it did. You used it, it was a phone. And now, a phone does everything. You're on the computer, you're on the internet, you're doing this, you're doing that, you can view your PDFs, and the phone is almost a secondary function. And that's how it feels like with a lot of the bars and clubs. Is that you go in, you enjoy the casino, and don't get me wrong, I like going into the casinos, I enjoy the bars. It certainly is more gentrified in many different ways. But it seems to be lacking that place where if you want to dance, if you want to have, a good boogie out there, you can't really do it. And, the amount of people that we spoke to, and I'm sure, all right, okay, there are still big clubs on the outskirts of London and probably in Manchester, Liverpool and other places. But then even in Liverpool, Manchester, those clubs are gone. It's all changing. So I kind of feel that when we're in some of these bars, we talk to people that go, oh, I really want to have a dance. And you're like, yeah, but you're actually in a really good bar. The DJ's great. The music's great. It's really, really good. Yeah, but it's full of tables. I want to dance. Where's the dance
Mm,
floor? Okay, they might move a few tables. And people literally saying, I want more. I need more. Where do we go? I want that dance. I need to dance, but I can't dance around tables. And it's so frustrating because many bars and clubs have the right music, they've got the right ambience, but they're just lacking the place to dance. And if you go back to some of the bigger clubs, regardless of whether they were commercial, like the Hammersmith Palais and the Equinox and the Hippodromes,
Hammersmith
certainly,
Palais. That
yeah,
that that brings me back. The place that the punters were putting the bouncers into hospital, if I remember. It was rough. It was rough, but you know what? We had a good time. We didn't have any kind of issues. We enjoyed it. In fact, the whole edginess of it was part of the thrill, to be honest, back then.
absolutely. And, and whenever they played a bit of Prodigy or Robin S. Show Me Love or Nightcrawlers or whatever it was, we had a great time. The point is, Johnny, it's not there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not there anymore. It's
yeah,
gone. It's
yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, it's
Um,
sad. It's sad. And I totally agree with you. It's either casinos or sports bars.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
Hippodrome, Casino,
sports bars, casinos. And don't get me wrong, we love a casino.
Equinox,
We love a
Casino.
casino. Yeah, we love a casino, and we go to some of the best ones like Mayfair by Palm Beach Casino and stuff like that. But when we're talking about these clubs and bars, the whole business model has changed. And you're so right. It's either selling it up in terms of real estate or converting it into some kind of hotel where there's no kind of bar or club kind of part to it. Or it's a sports bar or a casino. Like you said, Equinox Casino, Hippodrome Casino. There's so many. There's so many that's gone about. But for me, the biggest change in kind of answering the question back, I would say, and I know as you get older, you get more nostalgic and you have your rose-tinted spectacles. But when you were out, you really were out. And what do I mean by that is, we didn't have the distractions of today. So when you and I were out, or our group of kind of lads were out, we were just focused on the night out. We were focused on the music, the company, the banter, the kind of pulling each other's leg, and actually meeting someone. And from what I see now, most clubs almost become an extension of people's virtual lives. So people are just glued to that mobile. And I know we mentioned and talked about, social media in the previous podcast, but it does relate, because you just look at when most people go out, is that, instead of just enjoying the night and enjoying the company, they're taking picture after picture. And, here's a pose here, here's a pose there. And it's like, just relax and enjoy a night out. And I think because we didn't have back then the internet in the early kind of teenage years, and then we did have the internet, but it was very kind of embryonic, but we certainly had no social media, and we had a mobile phone, which people nowadays would look at and think, what the hell's that? But it was all about the night out. And I think the biggest change is that people, instead of enjoying the night, they're just doing everything but enjoying the night, because they need this kind of outreach of your kind of social media platforms to encompass their night out. I don't know what you think, mate, in terms of my observation.
No, absolutely spot on, Johnny. I mean, they would have been my two other points. So, in summary, and I'll bring us on to a third point. In summary, one, dance floors have disappeared when people want to
So you're right.
dance and enjoy themselves. We've gone to W Hotel and places like that had a dance floor that, everyone enjoyed going to. And
Just
I
ruined it, changed
remember,
it.
yeah, absolutely. And I remember one of the managers asking us, what did we think about, the changes? And we said, to be honest, we liked it the way it was, and other people did. And now if you go in that place, it's like hardly anyone goes there. Or if they do, they just go there for a meal
It's
and a
like a
sit down.
glorified canteen,
Yeah.
just high
And,
end one.
and a chat. Second point, as you raised, I've sat there many times, and I don't even know why it winds us up or frustrates us, because it's got nothing to do with you and nothing to do with me, but we just can't help feeling a little bit sorry for people that want to spend a whole night on their phone, staring at their phone. I almost feel
Yeah.
like saying, why did you bother coming out? You could have just done that at home. Why did you get dressed up to come to a bar or a club, to sit at a table looking at your mobile phone? And what makes it worse is they're sitting, socializing with their friends, all looking at their mobile phones. Well, what's the point of that? We were all together. We had fun. We enjoyed ourselves. We danced. We enjoyed ourselves. We felt connected. People would communicate with us. We would communicate with them. We had a laugh. And the third point is everywhere now, certainly in a lot of the nice bars and clubs, you either got to be a member, and if you're not a member, they want £500 for a table. So you could sit at a table and have a £20 bottle of vodka or whatever it might be.
More
I
like
just don't
£1,000.
or £1,000, yeah. I understand the principles behind it in some clubs, but it just seems to be killing the atmosphere. It's like, sorry, I want to come in, I want to enjoy myself. And I've googled and read so many different things on line about a lot of the old bars and clubs, and the inconsistency. 1 minute you would go and they would say, hi, how are you, please come in, we need you. And then the next day you go, it would be like, sorry, you've got to pay £300 for a table. And another time you go, it'd be like, oh, hi, how are you, please come in. And it's just like, what is going on? There's just such inconsistency. And everyone feels like they need to spend out all this money to have a table. No, let's just go back to basics. It's a great place to meet, a great place to be, and a great place to enjoy your night.
It's a fantastic point. It really is. And you've now jogged me and guys listening, and to this podcast, we're scrambling our brains to kind of represent our 25, 30 years kind of history of going out, clubs and bars, and putting it all condensed in this kind of one podcast. So if we're going back and forth, please forgive us. But, you just now set something off for me, and I totally agree. I would say, back then, although you did have members clubs like Annabelle's and stuff like that, which was more kind of the aristocratic kind of scene, it wasn't like it is now. Everywhere but anywhere is a guest list place. And it's all the attitude that there is now. And people coming in and they say, oh, you can't come in, but then someone with a kind of baseball hat and trainers and everything else just walks in, where back in our day it really was, having to wear the old shoes, and looking the part. But things changed, granted. Do understand that. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I would say as well, with that, when we were going out on a night out, it was so much more open booked. What do I mean by that? It felt like people were letting their hair down after a hard, week's work, and there wasn't so much the seriousness and that there is now. You see some people when they're going out, you'd be mistaken they're on a night out. They look like they've got the hump. They've got so much attitude, and it's like, listen, we're all on a night out, just enjoying yourself, as long as no one's causing anyone else kind of bother or aggro. There is that kind of more, seriousness, attitude-y thing, the virtual world all coming in. And I think it ruins the atmosphere. Whereas when we went out, when we were looking for a club or a bar, it was word of mouth.
Yeah.
There was no kind of TripAdvisor or Time Out or review site and you mentioned Google. Fantastic. There wasn't no Google. It was, I think the first one was Ask Jeeves, but we just did it and that was part of the thrill, wasn't it, mate? It was part of the thrill, the discovery in coming to these places and finding out about these places.
Absolutely. Now when we go out, I feel that, we've probably made about 10 or 12 different calls. We're on the guest lists of the places that we frequent frequently.
Deposits.
We'll go there knowing that
meal.
we're on the guest list, or we're a member of this club, so that's fine. We'll go there as well. So we kind of almost map out what we're going to do and where we're going to go. Although, we're quite ad hoc. We'll stay in a place if we want to, but we'll probably go to about 10 or 12 different places in a night out and just move around. But
that's another change. That's another change. When we were younger, when we went out, we went into a place and we stayed in a place until 3 or 4 o'clock. Maybe a bar to begin with. Nowadays, I don't know if it's a sign of age or we just get fed up of certain scenes. We'll be doing 5, 6 places, from Monkey House 1 minute, in Mahiki another minute, or it could be Mayfair Bar, or it could be Palm Beach. It could be all of these kind of places. And forgive us, everyone out there, if we're so London-centric. I know there's some amazing places in Manchester, Leeds and Liverpool and all these areas. But again, we're just invoking us and our memories. But we'd go to we regularly go 5 or 6 places. And if it's not you, it's me looking at each other. It's like, right, not really feeling it. Let's go to another place. And I think it's because we're looking for what we had. What do you think about that, mate?
Absolutely. I'm just, I'm looking for a place where when we have stayed, it's just, we both said, what a great night. Like if we went to Rooftop Gardens, for instance, in the summer, and it was the fact that you've got the slightly changing scenery, and you could be indoors, you could be outdoors, you had the air, you had the dance floor, you could dance. It was all, it's all about that atmosphere and attitude. We've gone into some places that we might have gone in a week before and we've gone, this is great, fantastic, really had a good night. And then we'll go back there another night and it's just like really boring or just rubbish, or it's just not happening. So we like to move around. We like to go from place to place because we're looking for a connection. And we sometimes just end up either having a great night because we've met up with people and we've done that and we've gone from place to place and it's just been really, really good. And sometimes you just think that next place, that could be the place we've got to stay in. And other times you and I have both said, my God, we've wasted our time going from one place to this place, in and out
Yeah.
of the cab. And then in the end, you just know you got to like accept defeat and go,
Call it a
it
day.
isn't really happening
Yeah.
today. Let's call it, let's call it a night. But
And you're so
um,
right. And I think that's why when you mention places, you mentioned Monte Carlo, you mentioned Cannes, and I think we talk about that because we went there like just a couple of years, and I was Rob's best mate, best man. And the reason for Monte Carlo and Cannes is that although those places seem highly elitist and pretentious, let's face it, and also very congested because they don't have all the space in the world. The clubs that we were going to, it felt like a throwback in the sense of the space, the dance floor. And I think if you could take a bit of that back into the London scene, it wouldn't be the same because nothing ever is. Things move on. But I think it boils down to your central point that the space, the dance floor, and that having that ability to enjoying yourself is something which most places nowadays compromise on. Because let's face it, when you go to most clubs and bars, barring the exceptional big ones, they're so small. They're so small and claustrophobic that you can go through one end to the other end in less than 20 seconds.
and I think the other thing as well, Johnny, like it was with us when we were in New York, some cities are so fast in many different ways that I know that when I've been in smaller places, you've got that one high street where you've got all the bars and clubs. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember going to York and places, and it's just there. It's all central, and everyone would be
Like a
like, "What are
strip.
you talking about?"
Yeah, yeah.
You can go in and out of each bar and out of each club.
Watford's the same.
Anyone that knows London, you're talking about 25
Mm,
square miles.
mm.
You could be 15, 20 minutes away from one bar and then be half an hour away from another. There isn't that central strip. And then what people would call as being that central strip is sometimes just too commercial or too expensive, where, unless you're going to pay £1,000, you're not going to go into this club. And that's the way that things have come. The way that things have gone. And you and I say, we're looking for something refreshing. We want that refreshing change. And when we're in New York and places, we get that. You still got
Mm.
really good atmosphere and friendliness. And I think friendliness is another one.
Yeah,
I find
especially
more
in
and more
London.
people just not friendly anymore. And I'm not just referring to the fact,
It's
it's not about,
the
yeah,
aloofness, the seriousness, and just not having that kind of, you know, warm kind of feeling. And for those up north, you're probably screaming at the at the podcast right now because you'll say, "Well, that's not like us up north." And again, it might be, and most probably is a London thing. Would you not think about that point?
yeah, absolutely. Because I've been in other places. I mean, when we're in New York, when we're in Cannes, um, you know,
Or even
from
up north?
up north, all over. From the bar staff to the doorman, everyone's really, really friendly. And it's not that people in London aren't friendly, because, there's plenty of friendly people, and we've got to know people in bars and clubs. But the point is, it seems to be, um,
A guard. Everyone's got
yeah,
their guard up.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so sometimes, or just a little bit of atmosphere, like, who are you?
Yeah.
Are you a celebrity? All
Prima
right. If you're not,
donna-ish. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's too much of that now.
And then you'll
It,
find the same person giving an attitude. You walk by and they're getting the night bus, but they've been giving it all the attitude like they had a Ferrari or Lamborghini. But yeah, I mean, it is crazy in those respects, and some of which, things have changed. But have we changed? Is it us or is it them? Is it us or is it the scene, or is there a mixture of both?
Um, I think it's everything. I wouldn't say that we've changed too much. I mean, look, we're a bit older, a bit wiser. We like different things. If I
A
go
bit
out for
grayer.
you, if I go out with my wife, I like nice bars. I like nice restaurants. I like the casinos. Yes, we have changed, but the places have changed also, where there doesn't seem to be that real party atmosphere sometimes as it was when we used to go out
Mm.
in the 90s. And when we look at clips on the internet and other people say the same stuff, this is when people used to have fun and dance and enjoy themselves. Now it really is like just a little bit more stuffy.
Mm.
um, and sometimes you're just crying out for just something slightly different and bring back some dance floors.
Yeah,
People like to dance. We don't all want to sit at tables just ordering food, listening to
yeah,
a good DJ. I want to dance.
yeah. No, you're so right. And I think what it is now, you've got your 18 to 23 scene of places where, let's face it, for us in our 40s, and I think for people in their 30s and onward, it's not gonna, it's not gonna, it's not gonna fit. But and it's that 30 plus to maybe 55, 60. You know, people are younger, people that have much better attitudes and everything else. It's so difficult now to find that kind of place. And we've changed in the sense that when we went out, it was all about, you know, going out, meeting someone, the music, having a drink, having the banter. And now as we go out, we don't want to just go to a club, but we want to sit down, we want to have a meal, we want to have a conversation, have a chat, and like you said, to have a dance, not with each other, mind you, but to have a dance and just, you know,
That's all right, Johnny. I'll dance with you anytime.
thanks, mate. But yeah, so it's crazy. And I mean, when would you say things did? When did you say things have changed? When did it change for you in terms of when would you say would be the turning point?
In the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, everybody listening out there, I think we've now been speaking for about 50 minutes. And what we wanted to convey on this podcast is basically, you know, two best mates going through kind of a 25-year period or more. And it just feels like a blink of an eye. Um, our memories, some of the kind of changes, our observations and stuff like that. You might agree with us, you might not agree with us, you might think two old dinosaurs just moaning about stuff. But I like to think that we've given it something in terms of our observations and everything else that goes there in terms of the scene and how things have changed from a London point of view and etc. I mean, to finish off the podcast, really, I would say from early years, it was discovery. Then it moved on to, you know, after discovering ourselves in terms of going out to places, new areas, new kind of things, we then grew up, find out more about what you want to do. You give up your hangovers in terms of any insecurities or acting older and everything else like that. And then as you grow older in terms of your 30s and 40s, you know what you want to do and you know where you want to go. And sometimes the scene's not always there, but let's just hope for all of us out there, you know, no matter what your night out is, that this time next year, as a famous person in Only Fools and Horses once said, you know, that we'll all be on a night out instead of Zooming or doing Microsoft Teams or WhatsApping and stuff like that. So let's hope we all get back to a night out. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed our take on what it meant for us. And we still stand by it. And I think from my side, when we went out, you were out. And I don't know about you, but that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Well, until our next podcast, all take care.